Go live.
Welcome to Beth Bell Live. I'm happy to have you here on my channel. I've got a live studio audience today, which is super exciting. But I wanted to start out with a few things. We're here to talk about everything that breaks our heart. So it's all about the state of the heart, where your heart is at. Is it blocked? Is it broken? Is it healing? Is it whole? What is making your heart ache? So if you're out there live, feel free to submit your question in the comments. We will take them. The people tuning in live always get priority. And if you're watching on replay, you can still put the question in the comments. But if you want a little more privacy, you can go over to bethbell.me/question and submit your question there. So last week, I did not do the show because I was in Paris. So I thought I would do a little preamble here because Paris is like the city of lights and the city of love and romance. And there were so many places where there was all of these padlocks and people would put their names on it, the partners, the couple, and, lock the padlock, right? And it's like every time we set ourselves up for these big romantic illusion fantasies, something inevitably breaks our heart. It doesn't mean we always break up, but something in the relationship, some expectation that we had about this relationship comes back and says, oh, that doesn't feel good. That's broken my heart. So whether it's romantic love, or maybe it's a family member, maybe it's somebody at work, maybe it's a friend that's broken your heart. And it can be from years ago, because that's what happens is we hold this heartbreak and it comes back and sneaks up and rears its ugly head at some point and holds us back from living the life that we love and where we love and where we have big love and we have an open heart. So we're going to jump into some pre-submitted questions today, and then we'll have questions from the live studio audience. We'll have questions from the people who are live with us on Facebook and YouTube, and I can't wait to get started and see what we've got for today. All right, question number 1. My daughter hasn't spoken to me in years. I've done a lot of spiritual work around this, and just when I think I've come to terms and have peace with it, I find myself sad and disappointed yet again. How can I move through this once and for all? I don't want to dip back into this feeling anymore. The insight that comes to me is that it's more about acceptance. When we're trying to push something away, even with the last little comment, I don't want to dip back into this feeling anymore. Who does? Who wants to dip back into heartbreak? But the only way through heartbreak is literally to open our hearts and to feel it and to allow our hearts to release this emotion. And so I can understand that after years of working on this relationship, that there's a level of frustration, probably even a level of wanting to give up. And yet your heartstrings are tugging at you so much that you're like, but I don't want to give up. I don't want to have this feeling, but I also don't want to give up. And so the word acceptance really comes to the forefront of my mind to say that there is something there for you to accept about that relationship. It sounds like you've done the work to try to understand, like, hey, what role did I play? But it's always going back to that soul contract, right? Like, what was my soul contract with my daughter coming into this life? What was it that we agreed coming in that she was going to play for me and I was going to play for her? And then staying focused on what you can do for you. What is it that's in my soul contract with her? What is it that my lessons really are to get there, and to try to just not be as frustrated with it? Because I know that feeling too. It's like, I've done this before. In fact, I've done this a million times. Like, why isn't it shifting? And so I think that's where Spirit's saying, accept that there is a contract, accept that there are things to learn. And once we start shifting that within ourselves, that resistance or that push or that pull, we often find that person that we love so much that's pushing us away may come back around in a way that we don't expect. And maybe it's a text, maybe it's a phone call, maybe it's that you hear something about her through someone else. So I think the more we focus on what we don't have, the more we energetically bring that in. So accepting that you don't have the relationship that you want with her is part of it. And then also loving her, right? Having that open heart and just sending that love to her and having her experience that, let's say maybe even another field, another realm, because she has some kind of block. She's got something going on for her that she's holding on to. And I think it's also having a sense of forgiveness for that and a sense of empathy for that. Whatever it is that she's holding on to is causing her a lot of pain. So I think you're on the right track. Stay with the acceptance and allow yourself to feel the feelings when you do, and then have something that you shift yourself to, right? Maybe it's a mantra, maybe it's a saying, something that brings that love and that light back to you so you can really feel what it is that you want to feel with her, as opposed to focusing on the disparity of what you don't have. Okay, let's continue on. If anyone from the live audience is up for asking their question, you can certainly do that, or I can jump into the next one here. We've got a whole host of questions today. And by the way, if you haven't already done the State of the Heart assessment, you should go to bethbell.me and take the assessment. You'll find out if you have a broken, a blocked, a healing, or a whole heart. And it's a really fun assessment. It'll give you some insights, and there's some tools and tips that come along with that as well. So bethbell.me. All right, next question. I am a 76-year-old man who too often feels stuck in my worried head and frozen in my heart and gut, especially when I am in a group. I feel a need to deepen my capacity to feel for others as well as for myself. My heart starts to come alive with my grandchildren, but with others, I feel secretly afraid at times to open my mouth. Rather than seek therapy, which I have done many times over the years, how might you suggest I restart this quest to be more sincerely compassionate and feeling to others and myself? This can be tough because they're old patterns, right? There's trauma. And, sometimes we get caught up in like the big T, the little T trauma, but trauma is trauma. Something has happened to you probably early on in your life where you were told to not speak up, or maybe you did speak up and someone shut you down, or someone made you feel stupid about whatever it was that you were saying. And so that pattern keeps coming back around in groups, especially, I'm feeling into the energy of it, probably in groups where you don't know a lot of the people, or maybe it's in groups that do know a lot of people. So if you happen to be with me here live, please write in the comments. Is it more with people who are ones that you know, or with strangers? Because there could be a little difference in the nuance there. But it is a pattern. It's a pattern that you're experiencing the trauma of speaking up or feeling rejected. And it makes sense that those little grandchildren, what are the big lessons that children teach us? I think there's two main lessons. One is pure love, and the second is forgiveness. And the only way to pure love is through forgiveness. And so, of course, those little children, they have those open hearts, they have those open minds, and they don't have these narratives around who you are, your papa or your grandpa to them. And there's an innocence and a freeing in that, because then we're not in our own stories. So the only way to navigate this is to make sure that you stay out of your stories, right? And your children, your grandchildren are teaching you one of the best lessons, how to stay really open-hearted and not judge other people. So think of that maybe when you're in a group and you know the difference between the feeling of being with your grandchildren and how you feel at ease and you feel like, oh yeah, I can say whatever I want, I can say whatever I think. And then yet how you feel when you clam up in a group, and pull that feeling in and just imagine, if you can, that the people you're talking to are your grandchildren. Yes, of course, the narrative and how you say things and articulate isn't going to be the same, but use that feeling of, oh, I'm just going to pretend like I'm here with my grandchildren, because otherwise it's just your mind creating this narrative that's coming forward about something that happened to you in the past. So I think this happens a lot. I think this happens more than we might think, this social anxiety, because there's so much that's happening in these groups. And at the end of the day, what is it? We just want to be accepted. We want to be loved, and we want to be seen by others. And so when we really start to anchor into ourselves and who we really are, and we're awakening that inner wisdom, and we're feeling really confident about who we are with all of our flaws and all of our craziness and all of the things that, make us who we are, and you get really comfortable with that, then you're just going to start showing up more and more and more with that. And what comes to mind is laugh a little bit more. So let's say you're in that social group and you feel the anxiety. Okay, so you bring in the grandchildren, okay, I'm talking about grandchildren, but you still are kind of like, and then you go, oh man, I just said something really stupid. And that mind goes, you just said something really stupid. Laugh. Just put a big smile on your face. Just go, however feels genuine and authentic to you, but laugh a little bit more, because then other people laugh and they go, oh yeah, like, I mean, it's the best thing you can do if you're ever speaking to a group, is if you make a mistake, is to appropriately laugh or kind of blow it off. And a lot of times people think, oh, that's just part of the shtick. That's just part of the whole thing. So when we can laugh at ourselves and not take it so seriously, we change that energy in the group, because your anxiety, when you're feeling it, can also impact the other people. So let's just go back to that open heart space, and let's treat everybody like our grandchildren, and how we approach them, because guaranteed, you probably have a lot of judgments and filters that are going through your mind about that person too. So let that go. Let that go and just go with genuine curiosity, like, hey, I just want to get to know this person, and I want them to get to know me. And their judgments around me just don't matter. So I think that'll really help you out when it comes to social situations and some of that anxiety and those patterns and trauma that you have. All right, and let's go on to the next question. I think we've got one coming from the live audience. Yay, okay.
Okay, Beth.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like I break my own heart. This is a romantic one, by choosing partners who ultimately participate in replaying old hurts, including from childhood. What say you about healing that pattern?
Oops. Okay, so let's dive into that, because I think that is what we're all scared about, is having our hearts broken, right? And so we attract people, as you said, that really get on that pattern, right? They trigger that button, and they make us really feel like, you're gonna break my heart. And I think the best thing you can do is to get into a relationship that breaks your heart, because then you know deeper what the triggers are. And I have this feeling that you know what those triggers are, right? And so when you fear those triggers, what do? We just bring it closer to ourselves, right? So it's also thinking about, how do I want to shift this, and how do I want to not have that be my biggest fear? And when you do that, then you start to shift your insides, right? Your internal energy, your internal dialogue about what you think that partner's going to do, right? Like, oh, I've already had a string of them. I'm not saying this is your situation, but all 5 of them cheated on me. And then I just keep finding someone who cheats on me. Again, not for you, but just as an example. And so then we always have that narrative in the back of our mind as well. That's like, oh, yeah, is he going to cheat on me? And there's this energy that just happens, that until you don't have that worry, you're going to have people that continue to cheat on you, because it's an energy within you. It's a healing. And the beautiful part is that we attract other people based on our wounds, right? So they have a similar wound than you do oftentimes. And that's a lot of times where the ones that we get those like juicy chemistry, like, like we're just like super connected, and it's like game on. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. That's all great stuff. But a lot of times that's an indicator that, ooh, okay, there's probably a big trigger here. And then be in a state of gratefulness. Thank you for bringing me this trigger, right? Like, okay, I'm feeling this again. And find it within you to say, you know what? My biggest fear, and again, this is not for you specifically, whatever it is, the pattern is, because you didn't tell me. I just have this fear that you're going to cheat on me. And I just realized that I really want to work on that for me, because it's my fear. It's not you. And if it is them, and it's them, then get the hell out, right? Like, then you got to like say, I know intuitively that this guy is intentionally doing this to me, and I'm gonna move away from the relationship. So it's like doing that deeper tune in to feel that and welcome that feeling of heartbreak, because I believe so strongly that the bigger the break, the more light that can come in on the backside. So we have to stop being scared of heartbreak, because that's what closes our heart. We've already broken like you said, I feel like I'm breaking my own heart. And we are. When we fear heartbreak, when we can't just go in and look, of course we use discernment. I'm not saying that you just like, whoa, to everybody. Well, you kind of do, but I mean, like on a vulnerability scale, right? Like on a, you're still like having that give and take, like giving and receiving. And how does that feel? And are they participating in the relationship at the same level than I am, right? So I'm definitely suggesting that, but go deep, go in, go into it, and go big. And if they break your heart, next. And I don't mean that lightly. I just mean that thank you for everything you brought me to help me go deeper into my own heartbreak wound, my own suffering, so that I can release it. And then when we stop fearing this heartbreak, then we can just live a life filled with love and laughter and, get to know ourselves even more and get to know other people on a different level, because we're not running those narratives about, is this going to end? What does this mean? All of those thoughts that come into your head. Is that helpful? Is that in the vein of where you're at? Okay, great. All right, so let's go on to the next question. And why don't you? I know we have a little technical difficulty here, so just let's just fix that, and then this is it's all part of being live. You get to see all the back end stuff. You've got a microphone that's kind of popped off. It was a hot question, and probably meaning everybody has that question. Actually, everybody does have that question, really. Okay. All right, so do we have anything coming up live there? Should I go here? Okay, so we're going to go back to our pre-submitted question. So I am dating an executive for the federal government. He also has other businesses and is the chair in a few organizations. It seems he is abandoning our relationship, but says he isn't, and even has suggested I meet his daughter, get mail at his house, and talk about the future, kids, prenup, housekeeper. Am I being insecure, or is he being genuine? Well, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because I feel like we just touched on some of these nuances in the previous question where, what is my shit and what is theirs? And I'm also a big believer that we know a lot intuitively and inside our bodies that we ignore, because our mind gets in the mess and we're like, oh, well, let me think through it. And there's nothing wrong with thinking through it. But I would say, use the Malcolm Gladwell blink, right? Like you get that, there's something off or there's something on, and you go with that feeling. But a lot of times what we do is we put these goggles over our eyes and we stick to the fantasy of what we want the relationship to be more than what they're showing us that it is, right? So we want to stay in, okay, are your words and your actions consistent? And if they're not, then you need to be speaking your truth and say, honey, you're saying this, but then you're doing that, and that doesn't feel aligned for me. And then if they're not willing to really be in the energy of digging into that, they're going to start giving you more and more clues about whether they're genuine and they're, authentic. And they're also going to want to work through it with you if it's your shit, right? If it's like, honey, and no, well, here, let me share more about blah, 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 right? So then they're sharing where they're coming from. Because a lot of times we don't see everybody's perspective. We want to, and we think that we are like, oh, I've thought about everything. But the reality is that every person has such a different background of life experiences and such a different lens of which they view the world, that as close as we can be to someone, oftentimes we're just coming at it from a very different thought process. We see this very traditionally with men and women and how they think. And, men are very oftentimes, not always, but very black and white, and they're very solution oriented. And that's a really good thing, because sometimes we just need someone to say, it's black or it's white, and here's the solution. But women oftentimes are like, no, I want to talk about all the shades of gray. And if you don't talk about all the shades of gray, then you don't care about me, or, oh, right. And it's like, no, you just need to be able to be heard and hear and feel. And then sometimes, maybe it's just a simple solution and we don't have to go to the chicken farm and back, right? So we're kind of getting into those nuances of wanting to understand, what's your lens? Honey, tell me, what's your lens? Because you're saying these things, right? He has a big responsibility, so that's also something to consider. But where is his responsibility to his work versus your relationship? Because I'm getting a feeling that there might be a little bit of a disparity there. Like you're feeling like, wait a second, okay, you have this big job, and yet I know I'm important, and our relationship should be really important. And I think that that's also true. And I think that if you're feeling that he's not on the same page as far as where your relationship fits in priority, then you need to have that conversation as well. And you might find out that, his job is right up there at the top in his priority list. Maybe because he feels that by doing a good job and making money, I'm providing for my family, and that's how I show my love, right? So it's not that he doesn't love you or doesn't love you more than his job. It's that he sees his job as a way to provide for his family. So again, it's just a different lens, a different perspective, a different way to look at it. But until you actually say what you're thinking and feeling and talk it out, you're just in your own little, fantasy world, creating stories. Women are especially notorious for this. We do this all the time. And then we go talk to our girlfriends, and that makes it worse. And it makes the story bigger, and there's more details, and it's right. And then by the time we get back to the guy, they're like, "Oh my God, how did you get there?" Like, I just said that blah blah blah, right? And they're like, and they're baffled, and then you're upset, and they're upset because, like, how did you know what I'm saying? So don't get in the storylines. Don't get in that energy of creating something that it's not. You're in a relationship. You agreed to be in a relationship because you love each other and you want to build something together. So just keep the balance of giving and receiving and priorities and conversation, and don't shove down the feelings, because inevitably you shove down a feeling and it will come back around to bite you later on. And guaranteed, what happens is that in relationships, long-term relationships, so much stuff piles up that you just can't even get to the core of it, because it's like so many stories back, and you're just upset, and then you don't even know why you're upset. So the earlier you can speak your truth, even if you shift your truth, like this is my truth today, but tomorrow I feel this, that's fine too. We don't have to be stuck on it. We just have to feel it and express it. And if we're not with someone that wants to hear it and work it out with us, then you start saying, am I with the right person? Am I with the person that's in this for my highest growth moving forward? And then some of the deeper questions come in, but it doesn't sound like you're there yet. It sounds like, you're really just working through the initial stages of, like, where's our relationship and priority to life and to work and to, all the other things that we have as commitments in our life. All right. If you have any other questions about that, please put them in the comments, and I'm happy to elaborate, even if it's on replay. I can pick it back up next week. So thank you for submitting that question. All right. Do we have any other questions in the live audience, or perhaps online? We'll be careful here.
Okay. Hi, Beth. So my last relationship wasn't particularly healthy. It's been some time, but despite that, I'm actually very grateful for it, because since that period of time, I've had the most beautiful growth journey. I found myself, and I love her, and I'm just very excited for life at this point in time. But I've noticed that occasionally when I'm dreaming, I'll have dreams, sad dreams of being in this relationship, and it takes some time to remember that I don't have to be in it, and I'm actually not in it. And just for context, I've probably had 3 or 4 of these dreams in the last year, so it's not very often. But I feel in my heart like I'm ready to move on to my next relationship, but I just wanted to make sure there's nothing that I need to still release that's on a very deep subconscious level.
Okay. I would venture to say that there is something very deep at a subconscious level that you are experiencing. And I love that you're not denying it, and that you're acknowledging, hey, I'm having this dream, I'm having this feeling. And what comes to me is that it's like, almost like, take that feeling, and I feel like you're doing this already though, but take that feeling and then transport it to the next person, right? Honor, because I heard you say you're really grateful. So you're honoring the relationship that you had. And I think sometimes, we end up treating old relationships like they're dead, or like they're gone, and that's part of closing our hearts, right? So when we feel like, and I'm not saying you have to be best friends with them and you have to talk to them and you have to have ongoing conversations, because sometimes that's not healthy either. But what the toxicity, I don't know, that feels strong, but the toxicity was from that relationship, and why you're not in it. And so it's also staying focused on, okay, I know why I'm not in it. I'm not going to focus on it. I actually think it's really beautiful that you're dreaming about this, because it means that your strength in the love is greater than the bitterness of the end, right? And so I think there's like a sense of pride perhaps that you should have in how you have transformed yourself to remember the good stuff. But then also just gauge in a really friendly way. I don't know why I say friendly, but a friendly way, like what the toxicity is, because that part is the hard part, right? Is like, and sometimes the question to ask yourself is, am I addicted to that toxicity? You know, what part of that toxicity am I calling in because I need to work through it? So I would say that's the nugget for you, right? Like, what's the addiction to that particular toxicity? Because oftentimes it's that we just want to be seen and validated. And so that person, I feel, hasn't truly seen you or validated you in the way that you feel like you needed to be. And that there's sort of that pull that's still there, still wanting to have them see you. And the reality is that they're probably never going to really see you in like your bigness and your brightness and your fullness, because they couldn't when you were in the relationship, and that's why you're out of the relationship. Another thing that comes is a lot of times when we're doing our work and we're like bright beings and we're actually awake and we're aware, we're shining our light. And when we shine our light, we shine it on other people's darkness. And then they have to deal with their darkness. And when they don't want to deal with their darkness, you know what they do? They make you the bad guy. Oh, it's you. You know, you're the one. I'm not sure if this is exactly your situation, but that's typically what happens. And so when they're not ready to deal with their darkness, that's when we have to make the choice of, and I don't mean like loosely, like just let people go. I mean, people genuinely earn the right to leave a relationship, right? So if you're breaking up with someone, they've earned that over time. Because if you've come in and you know, really brought your heart and your soul and stayed open, and if you haven't, that's fine too. Then you go, oh, geez, okay, well, maybe I was a little sticky there. Maybe I was a little closed. Maybe I didn't really say what I really needed to say when I needed to say it. And that's still that deeper work, right? And that could be that loving space within your heart of loving yourself, right? That you think that the dream was about them or their love or how you felt about them. But it might be your heart's calling saying, ooh, I just need to feel that way about me. And then you start attracting someone that feels that way about themselves, right? Their own love. Because we get in these relationships where the disparity of self-love is sometimes radically different. And that's where it becomes toxic, narcissistic. I'm not saying yours is, but you know, where it's like, so big. And when we get in those relationships where the disparity is not as big, then we have a lot more to work with. So I think that's the place where we want to start attracting and start thinking about the people who can come with the warm heart, people who can come with the desire to want to talk through it and to get into it, their stuff, your stuff, the stuff together, right? And so, yeah, I think it's great that your heart is bringing this forward in your dreams and that you're acknowledging it and not trying to just shove it down, and that you're bringing it up for observation. And you're saying, let's just take a little bit deeper look. So, yeah, I would say that there is definitely something there, but I think you're so far along the journey of the release. I mean, as you said, it was a while ago. And just knowing that love is you. It's not them. It's you. Does that help? Okay. Yay. Okay. So we've got some more questions coming up here. And do we have any other questions from the live audience that wants to come forward right at the moment? Okay.
A little bit taller. I have to make an adjustment here. Yeah, so my question is more about a family member, actually. I'm feeling a lot of heartbreak around a relationship with a sibling. It's been about a year and a half, and we've been best friends before, and now things are quite tough. And I guess my question is around, I'm feeling like I really want to open my heart to her and connect with her and find a way of healing back to the relationship that we had before. And at the same time, I don't want to be stepped on. My experience of her, she could be a bully. And so there's a way that I'm finding in my heart, wanting to stay open and allow that connection to be there. And at the same time, not not be stepped on, to be strong in the connection and speak out against not just dynamics with me, but dynamics towards others in the family that don't feel healthy. So I'm just looking for the balance there. So can you say something about finding that balance with keeping the heart open and at the same time staying strong in our conviction and for what feels right?
Okay, so what comes to mind is, what if the shift? Okay, so it's been a year. You know, you're best of friends. You've had this discord for a while. I'm sure you've changed. I'm sure you've done a lot of your own work. You've reflected on this. What if you were to just say to her, not say to her, what if you were just to be in an interaction with her and you let her bully you, but you didn't have a reaction? Just let her be her. Just let her be her and you be you. And you don't worry about her bullying or that discord. And you just looked at her with pure love. I know you've tried this, but I'm saying it from a deeper place, because it feels like there's a fear unconsciously that she could control you, or that she could get her way, not your way. You know, like there's something there that's still like this deeper, yeah, just let her be her. And you shift you. And when you're sitting there and all your brightness and all your, you know, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. How can I help you? I mean, you know these techniques, but it's hardest for us to use our own techniques when we're with the people that we love the most. And so that feels like a really great exercise for you, as much as it doesn't feel like it, right? But it feels like a great exercise for you to be able to sit there and with love deflect the threats, all the triggers, right? And you just go, ooh, and I feel that, you're thinking to yourself, right? You're not necessarily saying to her, ooh, yeah, okay, ooh, and you're just saying, and release, right? And then when she says something, just breathe in. I mean, just breathe in and just let it go, and ask it to go back to its source, because it's also probably coming from, it's definitely coming from her own shit, right? Her own stuff of, well, I don't want him to control me. I don't want him to get his way. So it's like you guys are mirrors and you're both doing the same thing, because you were best of friends and now you're having this discord. So it feels, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, just sit there as the mirror of love. Don't sit there as the mirror of bullying or getting my way, or right. And I say that with a little bit of drama. And I know it's not that dramatic, but it's that just like sitting there with just love and just being really, what would happen? Just what if, like, keep asking yourself, what if I just let her do that? What if I just let her say that? What if we just did that together? Whatever that is, right? Like, what if I were to just release my own that I have on this because of something I think she's trying to do to me? And you just stay focused on, no, what am I going to do to me? I'm going to stop that internal turmoil to just like really ask for release and breathe, like release and breathe, like feeling that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing with me how you feel. Oh gosh. Can you share a little bit more about what you're thinking about that? Right. So you're going into that curiosity, because then she's going to feel seen and heard and validated, as opposed to, and honestly, there's a good chance that you have the solution and you know what's right, or you know what makes sense. But it kind of goes back to the previous question where I was saying, and again, I say men and women, but it's about masculine, feminine, but women in general need to feel heard. When a man has a very good solution, it is not a good solution to them until they know that that person cares enough to understand where they're coming from. So it's like, if you feel into, I want to understand you so much. I want to understand you more than I want to get my way. I want to understand you more than implementing the solution that I know is so easy and I wish you would just get right now. Like that feeling, right? That feeling of like, I know I've done the research, like whatever it is, I've done the research, I've done the thinking on it, I've done all of this, right? Because I think the more you start to get deeper into her whys, it will trigger something within her because she has awareness. It's not like you're dealing with someone who's not aware. And then she'll go, oh, wait, maybe I'm not seeing it from his perspective either. He's really asking me about mine, and he really cares about mine. He used to care about mine, but now I feel like he doesn't care about mine. And so that's always the rub, that back and forth. And so you have to be the mirror of love. Even when you have all these stories and all these narratives and all of this really like reasonable rationale for how you feel and what you think. But that's not, as you know, what life is. Life is about the relationships, and it's about the emotions that people evoke in us so we can learn something about ourselves. So the more you start to see her as like that teacher tool, right? As opposed to, because I think you both are, not knowing her, but I think you're both of such high awareness and intelligence, and that's where you're kind of butting heads. And so if you soften, she's guaranteed to soften, and it may not be in the first one. And it's not about setting an expectation of, okay, I know you're not going to do this, but I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to expect her to do that. Because then that's just the mind coming and trying to control the situation and evaluate the situation. Did she do what I said, or did she soften? It's like, no, you just have to stay in your soft heart and just stay with her and hold the space. I think it's the one thing that men sometimes, and again, general statement, but men don't realize how powerful they are when they witness a woman's feelings. It changes everything for a woman to have a man, whether it's a brother, a father, a lover, when a man sees them for their pain or their insanity, because we know, and I'm saying that, a little tongue in cheek, but when we're off the rails and we're frantic about silly stuff, it's because there's something in us that we are not able to get to on our own, to articulate or to release, and we need you. We need men to sit there with a stake in the ground and just say, no matter how crazy you get, I'm going to be here for you, and I'm going to hear what you have to say, and I'm going to take that into account, and I'm going to sit with it. And maybe you walk away leaving only her having said her thoughts, and you just go, I don't need to be heard. My goal right now is just to hear her and just feel into what that means for me. Because when we're in conversation, just in any situation, especially if it's a cocktail situation or a situation where there's people, we're constantly thinking, what am I going to say next? What am I going to say next? Because we want to be engaged, and I'm just saying, what if you didn't have that conversation? What if you just didn't think about what I'm going to say next? And you just said, I just want to understand you more than anything in this moment. And chances are she's not going to reciprocate it right away. Because human nature is that they're almost shocked that you actually want to hear them to that level. And so they're going to, probably, sometimes it gets worse before it gets better, because then they're just, especially, again, I don't mean to make women look bad, because I don't mean it that way. I'm just saying, characteristically, we hold this stuff in for so long that then when you give us the chance, we're like, okay, and I'm going to tell you this time and this time and this time and this time and this time, and the whole dossier comes out, right? And that is so hard sometimes for men to just not take it personal. And it is personal, but it's not. It is personal because there was something you did, said, or whatever that caused this for her. But you can't look at it as personal to you, because that's where the hairs go up on the back of our necks. And we're like, okay, I can't let her berate me with something that's not true. But it's true for her. And she just needs to feel like you hear her. And I think that's the other thing a lot of times with men and women is that for a man to say, I hear you, I think sometimes they feel like they're saying, you're right. And a woman doesn't need you to say, I'm right. She just needs you to say, I hear you. And so if men just got a little bit looser on the, okay, I hear you, without thinking I'm saying you're right, because you're not. You're just saying, I hear you. And so that small nuance can help a woman say to herself, have I been a little unrealistic about this? Or have I been a little over emotional about this? And chances are she's going to come around to that on her own, because she's suddenly going to feel validated and heard. So I feel like that there's a lot of that happening here, but it's also a sibling. So it's like there's a lot of history there, and there's a lot of good stuff. But I have a feeling that something really big is going to happen for both of you from this. And if you kind of jump ahead on the timeline, and get excited about what the big learning is. Like what I get is, I don't know why, but I get like the two of you sitting at a fireplace, like laughing about this time in your life. Like, oh my God, do you remember when, and you kind of loosen that angst about it. And you're looking back at saying, that was the best lesson we could have taught each other as siblings, how we handle this in such a different way. And yet we both had the same goal in mind. Like we both wanted the best for this situation, but we couldn't get there because we were just too, yeah. And now we see the lesson that rolled out, and wow, isn't that great? And so, bringing, as you know, that energy from the future, in a sense, into the now can help start shift that energy within you too. And then I think you'll transfer, that telepathically to her, that you're looking for a different outcome from this. You're not looking to spend the rest of your life in discord with her, and lose a sister. And also what comes to mind is for you to say from your heart, if it feels right, I am so sad because I feel like I've lost my sister. I feel like I lost my buddy, I lost my friend, I lost my confidant, and I don't like this, and I want to find a way. I want you to feel heard. I also need to feel heard, but I really want to find a way. And when you get into that, it brings emotions to my eyes, because I think that's where you got to be. This hurts. This hurts. This is not an easy thing. It takes a lot of mind space. It sucks a lot of energy from both of you, from your lives. And so you want to get through this. And I think you got to get back to that heart. Open it, even when you know that she's potentially going to throw daggers, just like you might do to her if she opened hers and she softened, because that's human nature. Somebody softens and then, we're going for the dagger, but it's not consciously, but just like, because we want to feel heard. We want to be heard. And so I think if you, sit with her and envision yourself as that like strong warrior, stake in the ground, I am here for you energy, and just let her, I just want to, I feel like I haven't really heard you. I thought I did. I thought I was listening. I thought I was using all of my, my skills, but I just realized that I actually wasn't. Because if I was, we'd be able to amicably work this out, and we're not. So I want to be that guy that steps up and says, I really want to hear you now. Let's put everything on the table, and at the risk that she may not reciprocate that to you anytime soon. Or she may, we never know. She could pop right through, or it could just be that she needs to just go and do her own process and heal her own feelings around it. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
That's actually helpful to really, that's the role that I've played in the family, and with her is the one who listens and has my heart open. So I've been the one that she's been in peace with rather than fighting with, generally. And I think I've interpreted, I hit a place where I just decided to be strong in a very male way of like not putting up with shit anymore. And I think that thing's broken apart because she lost her listener in some ways. So still want to be strong in what feels right, but I do want to return to that place. I'm not in danger with her, even though it feels that way. So, thank you.
Yeah. The other thing that comes to mind is if you can release any idea of what feels right. The word right was what popped forward for me, right? It's like the right, because then it's suggesting that there's a wrong, and it's like, it's just raw. It just is. It's not rational. It doesn't need to make sense. It's like, I have a feeling and an emotion, and you have a feeling and emotion, and we got to get them on the table. We got to hear each other. But if you can be the guy that just is there to listen without any expectation that it's going to change, especially not in that session, whatever that's, that one time. It's like, you got to show up and be consistent, because when we get hurt, sometimes we need reinforcement that you're not going to revert back, right? And I'm not saying you're even in the wrong. I'm just saying that if you really want to shift this, that's the way to do it, is to listen and to let her just go on and on and on for as long as she needs to. I'm here for you. I'm here. And then, yeah, let the expectation go of what of you being heard. It's hard because we all want to be heard. Yeah, interesting. Okay, thanks for asking that question. It's a tough one. Okay, do we have other questions on live? Yeah, okay, so I think I've got a handful more here, and we're just about down to the end, so I'm going to grab one more from what's pre-submitted. Aging parents, advice on shifting lens to honor the natural process of aging rather than wishing parents were still able. Holding that broken-hearted feeling of wanting to grasp youthfulness in body and mind. I have aging parents too, so this resonates for me a lot. I think it's, what's coming to me is I don't have children, but for the person that asked the question, I think you have children. And it's like looking at them through the lens of caring for your children. It's like your children don't have the capacity to live and be on their own when they're younger. And your older aging adult parents don't necessarily have the ability to live on their own as they age at the end. So why in humanity do we have this difference that aging is bad because people are become dependent on us when they're young, being fully dependent on us isn't bad? Like, why do we have that, right? So if we can just kind of go to this other idea that, oh, I'm going to honor the end of life just as much as I honored the beginning of life with my children. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to harvest all these pearls of wisdom from the elderly. Now, in some cases they can't because maybe they don't have, if they have dementia or whatever. But even then, I haven't dealt with dementia, so I'm not suggesting that this is a light topic. But I do think that there are things that come forward, even in dementia patients, that provide some insights into their subconscious programming, their conscious programming, probably, patterns that existed because their filters are not as harshly in place from the ego mind. And so there may even be, and again, I'm not saying this lightly, but there may be something you can do to just have fun with the information that you're learning, even if it's repetitive or, and finding some questions to ask your parents that, if you think about, wow, at some point they're not going to be here. What would be those questions that I don't have answers to that I want to know? And you kind of make that end of life more curious. Like, I really want to understand like what they think about, X, Y, or Z. And I think that also helps them to stimulate their mind and get them to think about whether it's like a past childhood memory or it's like a memory from your childhood or whatever it is. It jolts them a little bit and they have to start thinking, right? I think sometimes we just go, oh, they're old and I'm just going to talk about the weather and I'm just going to not get into a hot topic because I wouldn't make that assumption. I'm not saying you are, but I'm just saying like, let's really like look at age as a beautiful thing. And, we really need to shift how we think about dying. Because honestly, from the moment that we're born, we're dying. Like, like we're dying. Like it's just how it works. Of course, there's like our peak, right? And then, but all of our cells, all of our telomeres, our DNA, everything, unless you're, even when you're actively doing stuff, you're still in the dying process. And so I think we just need to shift that. And when they're gone, what are the memories we want to hold? What's the wisdom that we gain from them? And staying focused in that positive part. And then when those negative parts come up, when we don't feel so great about it, that we're just finding a way to in a good way, compartmentalizing like where those boxes are. Because sometimes the pain points want to come forward and they're louder. And so we just say, thank you for that. And you can set that into a different compartment, a place where you're still going to forgive and love and know that that's part of who they are and something that they came here to teach you and something that you don't want to take on either to next generations or just in your persona that you project out into the world, that you really want to, learn from that relationship that you have with elderly parents, and also just have more compassion for them. I know sometimes I'm guilty of this too, where I want my mom to, or I want my dad to think as fast as they used to, or walk as fast as they used to, or do something that they used to, because that's how I see them. And again, honoring that, hey, they're just, they're just in a different life force space, and there's nothing wrong with that, and it's good, and that they're going to go on to another dimension, and they're probably going to come back into this one in another life anyway, and who knows what they're going to be in that next life with you, because we run in those soul circles. So who knows what's coming next, and maybe there is a level of curiosity for that as well. So hopefully that's helpful. I know that's always difficult. If you haven't already taken the State of the Heart assessment, I highly encourage you to go to bethbell.me. It's a great little assessment. You'll see if your heart is blocked, broken, healing, or whole. And if you have more interest in healing modalities, we also have the Healing and Awakening Handbook. And there's lots of tips, tools, techniques in there. There's also the Psychedelics Resource Guide. You or one of your loved ones may be interested in spiritual medicines, and it's a wealth of information. And even if you're not, but you know someone that is, sometimes it's great to just get into their mindset. I was someone who said I would never be involved in any drugs whatsoever, especially psychedelics. And I have a unique story, as we all do, about how I came to realize the power of plant-based medicines. And so I talk a lot about that in Angels, Herpes, and Psychedelics, my book. But the Awakening and Healing Handbook is a great way to just get right into some tips, tools, and techniques that will help you shift as well. And of course, there's the Herpes Handbook. I know everybody's like, herpes, but it's also about viruses of the mind, right? And it's about stopping that suffering, about ideas about ourselves, and about viruses, and about societal ideations around anything. I think everyone really understood what virus shame was when it came to the last pandemic. And so I think that it's really helpful when we start dismantling these thought constructs around, the lepers, and that people are damaged, or whatever it is, whether it's, a virus of the season, or it's herpes, or any other virus that's out there. So the Herpes Handbook definitely gets into a lot of details and a lot of resources, actually, as to how you can navigate with that and use it as a check engine light, if you will. All right, each week, 11/11 Sundays, we're here answering questions, anything having to do with heartbreak, and stepping into how we know heartbreak hurts, but it can also heal. So I hope you'll join me next week. And don't forget, at bethbell.me/question, you can submit it in advance with privacy, or you can put them in the comments below. And if you've liked anything of what we talked about today, please hit the subscribe button and hit the bell, and you'll be notified of future live streams. So thank you so much. Wishing you bliss and love.